is cold extrusion. To understand the concept of cold extrusion, let us consider a block of aluminium metal and try to deform its shape. For this, we place the aluminium metal in a die which has a hole at its end. Here, this aluminium metal is known as billet or slag, which is kept at the room temperature. Now let us introduce a ram. When we strike the billet by the ram at high pressure and speed, we see that the billet metal flows out through the opening in the back side of the die. Hence, the billet metal gets plastically deformed to a rod, and this rod obtained from the opening is called the extruded rod. Here, since the extrusion of metal takes place in the same direction as the movement of the ram, therefore it is called forward cold extrusion. Now let us consider the same billet placed at a room temperature in a die, that is flat from the other end. Now, when the ram strikes the billet metal with a high impact, we see that the billet flows along the surface of the ram, thus forming a cup-shaped structure. This cup-shaped structure is called as tube. Here also the billet gets plastically deformed to a tube, and this tube obtained from the gap between the ram and the die is called extruded product. Here, since the extrusion of metal takes place in the direction opposite to the movement of the ram, therefore it is called impact extrusion. Thus, we can say that the process where the metal gets deformed plastically without heating is called cold extrusion. Thus, we can define cold extrusion as a plastic deformation process in which a block of metal is forced to flow by compression through an opening in the die having a smaller cross-sectional area than that of the billet at room temperature. Cold extrusion is generally used to make toothpaste and spark plugs and gear blanks. Note that, in the extrusion process, tensile stress is not generated in the deformed metals. Only compressive and shear stresses are generated. Related term is